Today on Dead Dodge Garage, we've got a special treat and something very different than my normal videos. I had the opportunity to sit down with Dale, of Dale's Demon fame, and chat about this car, him ordering it, the history of it at drag strips. It was really cool to be able to talk to him and document it for you to see. Unfortunately, the video quality is pretty bad, and so is the audio. I apologize profusely, but stick with us. It's a cool story. Thanks. Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is Dale. In December of 1970, Dale ordered a brand new Demon 340 4-speed. That one. In the case of classic cars, things like original documentation, photographs, and other records of where the car have been really add a whole lot to its story and indeed its value. But what could possibly add more value than the person that ordered it special and bought it brand new? Dale, tell me about your Demon.
Well, my wife and I were into hot rods early in our marriage and so forth. We bought the first Charger in the Northwest and enjoyed that as a family car, but we both wanted a muscle car. So we looked around, and in 1970 we looked at General Motors cars, 454s and so forth, but our budget just wouldn't stand it. In 1971, everybody but Chrysler quit making muscle cars. They lowered the compression ratio. We looked at the Duster, but we did like the Demon. So I went to the dealership where I bought the Charger to order the Demon, and they said they had too many problems with ordered cars from Chrysler and they wouldn't order me one. So I went to another dealership and they ordered the car. That was in December of 1970. The car was built in December and was delivered to the dealership in January. We went to pick up the car and it was not the car we ordered. We'd ordered it with hood scoops and a spoiler and stuff. And he had those, but he was going to charge us extra to put them on the car. So I just walked out. Went down to the dealership in Auburn where we had bought our Charger and made a deal with him. He also offered me a deal on a 1970 Challenger TA, but we thought, oh, that doesn't work as well as a family car as the Demon would. So we got the Demon, made a good deal on it, and it was our family car. Back in those days, street racing was a big thing. And this car on the street racing was just fantastic. The big block Mopars, the big block General Motors cars, the Fords, we just ran away from them because they couldn't get a hold of the ground. And this car would. One day my wife says, why don't we take the car out to SIR and see just how fast the car is? And I thought, okay, we can do that. But it was kind of a deal. We didn't race our car that was our family car. We didn't do that. We'd had race cars in the past. But anyway, we decided to take it out. And it happened to be the Mattel's Hot Wheel National Open. So we entered it. That's the only way we could run. So we entered the car. It was a 2-day event. We qualified for what they call pure stock eliminator. Couldn't have headers on the car. You could cut the tailpipes, but we didn't even done that yet. And we wound up winning pure stock eliminator.
Here's a picture of the Demon at that very race, 1972.
After we got home and so forth, my wife says, we have to get another car. Why? We didn't drive our race car on the street. Maybe it was the other way around. Our street car wasn't going to be our race car. She thought we should race it. So we bought another car and started racing the car. And we did very, very well. 72, we won several races. And we also did it in grudge racing, which we did quite well at. The car was very, very consistent. Christmas Day, 1972. I opened my present and my wife had bought me tickets to the 1973 Winter Nationals in Los Angeles or Pomona, California. We took the car down to Pomona, towed it on the ground. With a friend of mine, we raced the car at the Winter Nationals and we won B stock.
B stock.
B stock at the time. We won B stock. We had to go in and the car had to be examined, torn down to some point to make for sure that it was within the pure stock requirements, which it met. The next day it started raining and they canceled the races. I had to come back to the Seattle area to work. So we came home. From that time we raced it in NHRA Division 6 and we were quite successful overall. For your outstanding achievements during the 1973 drag racing season, the National Hot Rod Association proudly extends to you this official invitation to be a contestant and entrant in the 1973 championship final.
Here's a look at that original invitation. There's a copy of that in the binder with the car as well. How cool is that? So the trophy is from that race in 73 where you won B stock, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Now this, the plaque, actually I put it back in the trophy. This used to sit in the car, but this is the original trophy and it sits proudly on the shelf here in the shop.
We raced the car then in Division 6 up till the Fall Nationals at SIR in 1975. Now we put a rev limiter on the car, but I missed third gear and the rev limiter didn't work and we bent all 8 exhaust valves. That was the end of the racing career for the Demon. We took the car home, put it in the garage. One of the kids that was helping me as a crew member had a Dodge van with a 318 in it. He bought another engine and put it in it, and we took that 318, I had it. I changed the timing belt, or timing chain, pulled the 340 out of the car, put the 318 in the car with the 340 heads on it that we put new valves in, and the intake manifold and so forth, so it looked like the 340, but it was a 318. Went down to a junkyard and bought a set of 273 rear end gears. And that became my drive back and forth work car for several years. Then we made some changes, bought a new house, took the car out to the new house, parked it in the garage, and it sat in the garage for 25 years. When I retired and moved out to the coast, we brought the car out there. I rebuilt the 340, put aluminum heads on it, and hopped it up and so forth, and then it was a show car for several years.
Got a few car show plaques and magnets in there, just a few.
We did quite well. It was interesting to watch. We put up on the car that it had been a race car and that it had won everything. And at the standard car shows, people would walk by, oh, it's another Dodge, and so forth. And then somebody would read the statement that we put on the car.
Yeah, this one, I believe.
And all of a sudden it became quite interesting. And we won several trophies and prizes at car shows throughout the years. During that period of time, my wife passed away from cancer. I remarried. My new wife was not a car enthusiast as far as hot rods and so forth. She was into Lincolns, Cadillacs, but not hot rods. We did continue to go to car shows and so forth, but it wasn't something she enjoyed. Then along came...
Yeah, me.
Yeah, and he was interested in buying the car, and here it is.
Yeah, here it is. It took several years to work out the financial end of things, but I grew up eventually. The way we met Dale is my brother Colin, the poofy-headed one, who you see on the channel occasionally, delivered newspapers in Ocean Shores, Washington. And it just happens to be where Dale moved to when he retired. And here or there, he'd see the garage open on this house and the tail end of a Blue Demon sticking out, which just isn't something you see. And so we've kind of known about the car for years ever since then. Later, we opened a shop in Aberdeen, Washington, where we live, and we always had old Mopars and things around. And one day, Dale pulls up and says, I have a blue 71 Demon. And we said, you live in Ocean Shores? And he said, yeah. And we've kind of been friends ever since then. He mentioned several times over the years wanting to sell the car. I never thought I would be able to buy it. I never thought I'd be, worthy to own something like this. Junk piles like that Swinger over there, kind of more my speed. But man, it was a dream for a long, long time, and I'm very happy to have been able to buy it. It's something really special. The reason people got so excited about it at those shows when they realized what it is because this is original paint from 1971, or 70, I guess. Original paint, original everything. I mean, you just don't see cars like this.
Well, I was glad to see somebody that really appreciated the car get the car. That was my goal.
Your wife told me that if I hadn't bought it, she may have had to bury you in it because other people came along that wanted to buy it. You said one wanted to daily drive it. Nah. And then one wanted to completely restore it. Why would you do that? I mean, you can't buy this. It doesn't exist. My entire take on this car is it needs to be preserved. It needs to remain as it is. I mean, I like enjoying it and banging gears and beating on it a little bit, but, it's what it's been doing for 50 years.
Well, you know that there's a big Mopar show south of Puyallup.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taken it there, and we showed it a few times there. We won trophies at that show. There's a great big show in the fall at Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
We put it in there, and we won a couple, 3 prizes at that show. We're talking car shows of 500-600 cars.
Oh yeah, I would love to take this car out to more events like that because, again, it's just like, it's so unique. I mean, you see restored ones, you see rowdy ones, you don't see nicely, it's not perfect, but nicely preserved originals like this. I mean, I love things like the little mark where the air cleaner stud kissed the hood. And I really like, over here, I mean, belt buckle rashes and things from working on the car all those years. I mean, again, it's just the kind of thing you can't buy. You can't fake it either.
When the seat covers went to hell, we were lucky enough to find a set of original seat covers.
Those are originals?
Yes.
Those aren't reproductions?
They were supposed to be originals.
Wow.
We bought those and cushions and stuff were bad. Volcom rebuilt the seats and put those original seat covers back on.
And you did new carpet, right?
Yes.
But everything else in there is
Yes,
original.
the original in the back
Back
seat.
seat, headliner with a couple little chew marks.
It still has the original spare tire in it. It's never been on the ground.
You did replace the trunk, the liner thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was torn up.
It still has the tow bars on it. I've meant to take those off, but I don't know.
Do you want the tow bar?
I can't say I'll ever use it.
It works well.
Well, flat towing's not really the way these days, and I have a nice trailer to put it on, but it's part of the history, so yeah, I'd like to have
Well,
it.
and when we took it to the show cars, it was on the trailer.
Right.
It's got, 84,000?
It's now 80, it is now 86,551. I've driven it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Little bit.
When I rebuilt it, I put 323s in it, but with the cam and stuff I put in the engine, wouldn't work, so I took those out and put 410s in.
Yeah.
And when we raced it, we had 488s in it.
Right. The 488s are right over there. The 410s are still in the car. And the 32s are actually in my Charger right now, funny enough.
And where are the 274s?
They're in the shed.
Yeah, that was a non-positive traction rear end.
Interesting part of this car's history. He mentioned the 340, missing a gear and bending all the exhaust valves. So he put that 318 in the car. That 318 was in the car for about 30, I think.
Yeah.
Because you rebuilt the engine in the mid-2000s, the 340.
Yeah.
So that 318 was in the car longer than the 340 has been in the car.
I have to tell you a story about the 318.
Okay.
I have a daughter. When she was in high school, if she was good and got good grades and took care of things, she got to drive the car on Friday nights and so forth. And she wasn't supposed to race it. Well, we know better than that, don't we, Karen? And it turned out they were out watching the street races, and sometime she was talking about the races that the car had won and so forth. And there was a guy that was supposed to have the hottest car in Federal Way. And she looked at him, she says, "I'll take you on." That's the story I get. And she beat him.
Wow.
And it was funny because we used to go out and, there was always a little bit of street racing at one time, all of a sudden, nobody would come up and try and race this car. It was several years later I found out why.
Did she drive it to college too? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, it was during that
Okay,
period.
yeah. So yeah, the 318 obviously was pretty good.
Yeah.
So that 318 was in this car for, again, longer than the 340 was. The 340 went back in the mid 2000s with the restoration, just redoing the engine and getting it ready for car shows and such. And when I got it, the 340 was in it. I did take it to the track once with the 340. I'm not much of a drag racer. I've only been twice in this car, but I had a couple problems. I couldn't quite get it to run right, and I was informed I was leaking oil in the staging lanes. So I removed the 340. It's on an engine stand over here for safekeeping. It will be going back in the car eventually, but currently it has a 360. So yet again, the 340 is not under the hood. I didn't want to break that engine, and this is kind of an experiment. This is the first performance package engine I spec'd myself. I've built some hot rod engines, but this one I did the heads, I did the valves, I chose the cam. Now the entertaining thing about the cam is it's the cam you were talking about that was in the 340 when you first put it together. You've told me that cam was ridiculous, way too big for the street, and that's why you kind of dumbed it down with the smaller one. I thought that sounded awesome, so I put it in the 360, and let me tell you, it is awful.
It has no power under about 2,000 RPM, but when you get it to 3,000, hang on.
Yeah. And I still am not completely sure what the problem I was having with that was. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it when it goes back together, but I picked up 7 miles an hour at the strip with this 360 and that cam.
Well, the one thing is you weren't revving it to 6,500 either.
No, I wasn't, and I wouldn't. This engine doesn't want to go there.
No.
I really didn't want to window that block. I don't want to be the guy to break it again, so I certainly wasn't trying that hard the first time I went out.
Well, when we rebuilt it's bored out.
Is it 20 over?
30 over.
30 over.
And then we found out that the block was on one side, there was more CCs in the back than there was the front. The surface were straightened out, and now the pistons come out about 75% of what the maximum is. So in case you have to trim it again, the heads are still on the 318.
Right.
As is the intake manifold. You've got the exhaust manifold.
I do. I have just about everything else. That's the other amazing part about this. Dale saved everything that came off this car. That picture I showed you from 72, the tires on the car in that picture are right there. The original air cleaner is right there. The original carburetor is right there in a box. The very rare, 1 year only, very first Chrysler used part number, Thermoquad, is right there in a box. The original V-belts are in that box. I don't have the original air from the tires. I don't have the original air filter, and there, couple, the thermostat, goofy little parts, but like almost everything is right there. He saved all of it. It's amazing.
The carburetor. When we were racing the car, one of the problems that we had is the car was always lean. I got a package of jets. I put the biggest jet that you could put in it, and the carburetor was still lean. I took the jets out, I took some of the smaller ones, and I drilled them out even bigger. Still lean. I went to a Chrysler seminar. During the break, I walked up to the guy and I said, "My name's Dale Grant, and he said, 340 Demon 4-speed. I said, "You know me?" He says, "We know every car that does well." And I said, "Well, I got a problem. I can't get the car to go out of lane." And he says, "What you do, there's two little air vents on the side of it." He says, "You solder those air vents closed and drill them out with a smaller hole, and it goes right." So I did it, but I didn't go all the way with the numbers that he told me. Put it in, put the jets in it, medium jets and so forth. The car was rich. I was able to tune it. It made a big difference in how fast that car went and how well it went. And that's a trick to those carburetors. Because that's the only year they built that carburetor.
Yep. That is a 1-year version of the Thermoquad. Chrysler was still doing performance in 71, but by 72, the party was over. Mid-year 72, the 340 got a cast crank. They lowered the compression ratio beginning of the 72 run. This car, being a December production date, it actually had an orange 340. That changed in February of 71. They changed to blue. Kind of cool. You got it right at the end.
Yep. I forgot about that.
You were talking about friends at Chrysler. Tell me about this book.
Well, the guys then we talked, and afterwards they wanted to see the car, so I called my wife and said they were coming out, and I invited them out to dinner. And we had dinner, and they wanted to know if I was interested in this, which is How to Hop Up Chryslers.
The Bible of original Chrysler performance.
Correct.
The Direct Connection book.
And they sent them to me, and I built this book.
Yeah, and this is cool. And I've shown this on video before, but it's just, what a neat piece. Now there are sections in here for everything. If you don't know the Direct Connection book, there's a great one. 273, 318, 340, 360 racing manual. There are a lot of good sections. Let's see, there's carburetors, racing carburetor and manifold calibrations, chassis and drivetrain. One of my favorite sections in here, if I can find it. Oh wow, fuel economy tips. They must have put that in by accident. There's the big block racing manual. Oh, 426 Hemi. Nice. Here's my favorite. 170, 198, and 225 6-cylinder racing manual. This is Chrysler's performance Bible for these cars. And back in the day, this told you everything you needed to know to go fast for competition. It's just awesome. What about year did you get this, or did you put this together?
73.
73.
Yeah, it was after we'd won the Winter Nationals, and they came around. They had a group of 3 people that would travel and put on seminars. I worked at that period of time. I was the head test driver for PACCAR, who are the owners of Kenworth and Peterbilt. One of their guys was interested in the trucks, and I was able to give him a tour of PACCAR's research and development facilities that existed at that time. We had quite a good evening. It was rare, a lot of people didn't get to do that. That's part of what made this car do as well as it did. nowadays with the rules and stuff that NHRA has, these cars are faster than what this one was. But this car always went in the low 12s. The best speed I had was in the high 11s.
And we can prove that because we happen to have time slips. And here's the best one from SIR. Hot, 180 degrees, 1188 at 112 miles an hour. That's booking for 1973. I mean, that is fast.
Well, I'm glad to see you with the car. Somebody that'll extend the history of the car, and I believe has as much enjoyment out of the car as I've had.
I certainly enjoy it. There's no question of that. You know, my hope again is just I want to preserve it as it is, but I also do want to enjoy it. I don't want it to sit in a museum like it kind of deserves. I want to use it, you know. These cars, it's really important to me that they run, they get on the road, they do what they were meant to do. And this one was meant to see some track action, so I'm hoping someday to be enough of a driver to do that correctly.
I'll teach you.
Okay. You did offer.
Yes.
How's your knee doing?
Terrible.
I've made a couple comments. The car now has a diaphragm clutch, so a little easier on the knee. But when I got this car, it had a Borgenbeck 3-jaw style still, 3-finger clutch. And it was the heaviest clutch I have ever felt in my life. And small wonder that your knee has not stood the test of time. I mean, Jesus.
Well, you can see on the side of the frame where we had to reinforce that.
Are you aware the clutch pedal is bent?
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah. The top of it is twisted. It doesn't hit the stop anymore. As much as I like that, you know, I may have to find another clutch pedal. That clutch slipped a little bit, and so I've got a diaphragm in it now. The pedal effort is much easier, and it does hold fairly well. You were telling me the reason you never ran a diaphragm clutch is because those are the ones that tend to explode. Yeah, so now that's what I've got going through my mind every time I dump the clutch in this car.
Well, and then apparently when I put it together, you mentioned I screwed up when I did the flywheel.
Well, whoever machined the flywheel took off an insane amount of meat. And you know, you might think that's great for weight savings, but the problem is twofold. First, it changes the geometry of the clutch linkage because the disc is moving this way, so everything's kind of moving farther away. But the other thing that happened is it had been taken down so far, the bolt heads, the original clutch bolt, flywheel bolt heads were proud, and the clutch was able to grab on it. So they were all rounded off, and so the clutch was never truly disengaging. It was catching on those bolts.
What flywheel did it have in it? Was it a steel one or was it the aluminum?
It was steel. I didn't get the aluminum one, so I think that was long gone. I'm not sure. I believe that one is the original. I'm not completely sure on that. You weren't either. You handed me a pile of clutches that you'd run over the years. There was a Kevlar clutch in there. There were all kinds of different ones.
Yeah.
I'm currently running one of your old clutch discs with the diaphragm cover, which, like, just complete goofy mismatch, probably shouldn't work, works great. Everything from the car is here, but I did scrap pile that flywheel because I didn't ever want to accidentally put it back in a car.
Yeah, the weak part of these cars is the clutch. Well, the other thing that was weak on these was the driveline.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's got the bigger U-joints and stuff in it, but the other thing that we had done on it is that the driveline has a piece of paper in it.
Right, reinforcing tube inside it.
Which made apparently one big difference.
Yeah, I don't understand how that works, but I know it does. GM's aluminum drive shafts, they're all reinforced with a paper tube like that.
Yeah, because the original driveline didn't have the paper in it.
Mm-hmm. Did you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it still has the drum brakes. It still has the small bolt pattern wheels. It has all of those stock pieces. And I've seen pictures of you doing wheelies with those components. Did you ever have problems with the factory axle shafts? breaking lug nuts, anything like that with those smaller components?
No.
I wanted to ask you about the Krager wheels. So you told me those were built for this car. What's the story on that?
When we went to the Winter Nationals, we got M&H. They were a street legal slick.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they only made them in 15-inch wheels. Krager didn't make 15-inch wheels with the small bolt pack.
Almost no one did. I mean, yeah.
My brother had a parts house in North Seattle, and they sold Kragers, and he had kind of a little speed shop in the parts house. So he called Krager, told him what was going on. Krager said that if I'd bring the car and the tires down, they would build me a set of wheels. So when we went to the Winter Nationals, we went a couple days early, went down there, picked up the M&H tires from M&H at the drag strip, took them over to Krager in the Los Angeles area. They put the tires on the 15-inch rims and then put them on the car, put the centers on the car,
Mm-hmm.
and put them in there, then took them off, took the tires off, and welded them. You can put, with the tires that are on the car now,
Mm-hmm.
you can put the wheels on either side.
Mm-hmm.
Now those were directional slicks, and when we were set up with the wide slick tires, which I still have at the house, believe it or not,
Uh-huh.
the old M&H's,
Nice.
NHRA would allow you to put any street legal tire that would fit in the wheel well without modification.
Mm.
And we had those 10.5-inch M&H's on. But the way it was set up, you couldn't change sides with them. The right side had to be on the right side and the left side. And I imagine it's gone now, but I had the wheels marked which side they went on.
That's always, the axles do not sit centered in the body.
No.
They don't. And it's always, so now the left side tire will occasionally rub if you try really hard. It's always that left side. I don't know why, but the axles, they're built off center, right? The drive line is this way, but the axles always sit that way in the car. It's always the rear left where it rubs. My Charger does it, this car does it.
And you can see where it's rubbed in the wheel well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They've rubbed over the years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that means they must have centered those tires, and the wheels are ever so slightly different between the two.
The other thing is the stop on the rear end makes a big difference.
The pinion snubber.
The pinion snubber.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference because we did put the pinion snubber on when we went to the Winter Nationals.
And you told me the way you ran the snubber, the way you found it launched the best, was with it preloaded against the floor.
Correct.
And it was still that way when I bought the car. I lowered it one setting to try and get just the tiniest little bit of suspension driving it around. I was surprised to learn that.
The other thing is, and I think they're still there, is the front spring. The front of the springs are clamped.
Yes.
And the rears, the holder is gone.
Mhm.
We took those off.
Yep.
Because the springs, when you left, used to do
Yep.
that.
They fan out,
Yeah.
and the extra clamps on the front segment just firm that up that much more and kind of turned it into a traction bar.
Yep.
Yep. I'm going to mimic that setup on that car. I'm going to copy a lot of your notes. I've shown a lot of this on video as well. In fact, if you go over to my main channel page and go to my playlist, there's a playlist called Dale's Demon. Dale's Demon. And there are a lot of videos in there. I show off a lot of this cool documentation stuff, a lot of the kind of memorabilia parts with the car. I've showed a lot of the cool original components that are not on it but are present. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. There's just so much history here. As you view the car and see the little dings, dents, scratches, and the original paint, keep in mind it's a survivor. It has not been restored. Just well kept for a car that's 39 plus years old, plus, indeed, at this point, and has been down the drag strip hundreds of times and street raced. Original window sticker, original voided title. Oh, he brought me a present today, demon hat. I guess that was in exchange for the one I got him. There's one other thing I'd like you to tell us about. And it's the scratch on the quarter window on this side. The scratch.
We were some friends, and they got engaged, and she had her ring. And I told her, oh, that's a fake time. She says, no, it isn't. Took it and scratched the window.
There it is.
You may have the car as long as I did, but I had it for 51 years.
There are a lot of weird similarities between us, actually. We both have one daughter. You bought this car when you were 30. I didn't quite buy it when I was 30. I was 31 when I bought it. So if I had bought it like 6 months earlier, I would have been 30, you would have been 80, and you would have had it exactly 50 years. But I failed. So
And I
I
had
was
it
31, you were 81, and you had it 51 years.
Yeah.
So I'll have to hold it onto it till I'm 82.
Okay.
All right, I'll see what I can do. As far as like still waking up at 82.
You can wake up, have a cup of coffee, decaf at that time,
Yeah, I'm
and
gonna
then go
have
back and take a nap.
Grandpa's gotta go to bed. Grandpa's tired. But it's 8:30 in the morning. I know there are like 1,000 more stories on this car, but it would take years to get through all of them. Hopefully you found that enjoyable or entertaining. I did. At least one person over the last couple of years has been convinced that I am Dale because the car is called Dale's Demon. I can't bring myself to call it anything else. I mean, he was Demon Dale. He's still Demon Dale in my phone, actually. So, you know, that's Dale's Demon. That's what it is. So hopefully that makes sense. You know, a big part of this car, its history and what it is and why it's here is this man right here, Dale. So thank you very much for sitting down and sharing.
You always, when you have a car like this, wonder what's going to happen to it or where it goes when you're gone. Sir, I'm so glad you're the one that got it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, guys. And remember, they're only original once. So take care of them. When are you going to teach me how to drive?
When you get ready to go.